I'd like to call this meeting to order. Oh my God, that's loud. I don't need any amplification.
No, but Michael's taking
I'm
care of
loud
it.
anyway. Oh, okay. The first thing on our agenda today is approval of minutes of the meeting of July 14th, 2021. I hope you've all had a chance to look at it. And for you new people, when you make, now not on this, but when you make a motion to accept a COA or something, let's be sure to try to put our reasons, like, for instance, it complies with whatever. I'm such a good explainer. Please explain
What the
it
chairwoman
better.
is trying to explain is,
Falling over her mouth.
in your staff report, you have listed the sections of the city ordinance that apply to a particular case. You can also use applies to chapter X of design guidelines, or applies to item number 3,
Chapter
6, and
10
8
of
of
sign
the Secretary of the
guidelines,
Interior's.
whatever.
So you want a reference as to why, instead of making a motion, I approve Mr. Mall's request because I think it's pretty. That's, that's what we want to avoid.
Right.
So it would be, I approve Mr. Mall's request to paint the building because it complies with Secretary of the Interior Standards number 3. That's something that now the applicant understands why you are approving or denying instead of opinion.
Thank you.
Makes sense.
Okay, do I hear a motion to approve the minutes of July 14th?
I'll make a motion, we approve the minutes of July 14th that's submitted.
Thank you. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. All in favor state aye, please. Aye. Opposed? Thank you very much. All right, now we will hit our regular agenda and discuss and consider COA, Certificate of Appropriateness for property located at 318 East Main Street, COA number 2021-006.
Yes, Chairman, for 318 East Main, there are varying dates of construction, anywhere from as early as 1900 to 1910, depending on the 1986 Historic Site Survey, the 2007 National Register nomination, and the 2011 update. And all three of those, so circa 1905, how about that? So it's plus or minus 5 years. And then all three of those also list the building as non-contributing. All three of those reports were done, if you look at the photo on your screen, when it looked like the one on the left. So the one with that slipcover. The building, you can see in the report, it shows that it was pretty much the same size until around 1946 when they expanded to the back, to the south. So the footprint of the building has pretty much been the same since 1946. And then sometime in the 1960s, that slipcover that you see on that left photo was added. Then in 2012, the current owner of the building submitted a request to remove the stucco, replace the doors with the original, redo the facade and columns, in keeping with the styles of the buildings downtown. Well, that doesn't sound like a typical request because it's somewhat vague, but this is one of those buildings where before the applicant went and removed everything, there was a lot of unknowns. And so it was, my desire is to remove this and then see what's behind it. Mr. Sloan had taken a peek, but a little glimpse doesn't tell you as much as full reveal. And so that's why that request was somewhat open-ended. Then in November of 2020, in discussions with the Main Street Department and Historic Site staff Jessica Sal, the owner submitted the rendering, which is the one on your left, the drawing, to Jessica, and Jessica submitted to the Main Street Department, or excuse me, the design report to the THC Community Heritage Development Division. I always have to write that down because that's a long name. And what they do is they do research on their own. They ask that the Main Street manager, fill in blank city, supply them with whatever photographs they can find, any photo they can find of the building, whether it's only present day or old or both, and then any research. So Jessica sent them a packet with the drawing on your left, a photo of the existing building, and then those historic photos that you had in your packet, which you can see they weren't a lot. We had a couple from the 1970s, and that was pretty much it. And then THC returned that design report in January, end of January of this year, And hopefully you noticed in their report, and I'm gonna read it here, it's, they emphasize that the report is not regulatory, that the regulatory powers rest with the local municipality, so you in this case, and that their report is only to be used for guidance. So this is not a thou shalt only do this or this. This is simply another tool for you to use in considering approvals or denials. So the proposal is essentially what you see here, and that is to take the rendering from what is now Cowboy Jack's and turn that onto the picture on your right-hand side. What THC's report states, when comparing both properties, they significantly differ in overall proportion, scale, material, and stylistic features. In addition to the differences aesthetically, there is no physical evidence or supporting historical documentation available that justifies the removal and replacement of the existing elements with conjectural features from another property. And notice I said that there was no existing evidence. We have buildings downtown that we did not have any evidence of. The law office that is adjacent to Cowboy Jack, so the neighboring property, the one we just referenced, they had requested to do a balcony, but there was no evidence that one existed. So what Hlpc said was, if the architect is willing to go do some select demolition on the inside, see if there is evidence of a doorway, then come back with your proposal. And that's exactly what they did. So there was a building that had no historical evidence from the outside, photographs, written, sandborn maps, etc. All said no. They did the demolition on the inside and revealed the doorway. That was the evidence for the approval of. So I want to make sure that's clear. This is not a, there never was. The information we have says that there hasn't been. So kind of make sure, I see a bunch of head nods, so I think that's clear. The two renderings that THC sent back, as based on their research with design of other buildings that are similar in our downtown, excuse me, they recommended this design along with this design. Obviously, neither one of those are what the applicant was requesting. And so the applicant has requested that we present his case before you this evening. So Chairman, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have, and the applicant is here as well.
Okay. All right, first, do we have questions for Brian? Please.
And either you can answer or you can hand it to the applicant. Rear, these buildings often are downtown. We can't see the rear, but this is a prominent rear the rear of this building is on a prominent street and very visible. How about that? I did not see that included anywhere. Is there any information on that?
Nope. No, because their proposal was only for the front.
Okay.
And so we did not include any information on the rear.
Okay.
Should the applicant have asked to do work on the backside, we would have included that.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Questions for Brian? And the applicant is here to answer all our questions. Okay.
I don't know if this is a question, but in reading this, it said that slip cover on the front of it is considered historical also?
Could be.
Could be, because
Could
it's
be.
50 years old or something.
So in order to be eligible, and I'm going to lean on my professor over here, if I'm wrong, she'll correct me, but in order to be eligible, it has to meet that 50-year mark. But that doesn't mean that it automatically is.
And it could be taken back to a previous incarnation.
Correct.
Yes.
Any more questions?
I don't have questions of staff.
Okay. Mr. Sloan?
Yes, ma'am.
Would you join us? And state your name for the records.
John Sloan.
All right, who's got questions?
Sure, I'll have a question. Now, from what I read, you're going to put an apartment on the second floor, is that right?
That's correct. The building currently has a mezzanine floor. The has a second floor that comes about halfway of the building.
I've been in there.
Oh, yeah, you have. I want to bring it all the way to the sidewalk, and then I need a entrance, you know, a walk-in entrance for stairs to go up. That's the reason I want it to kind of look like the Cowboy Jacks. And I think that's highest and best use for it. If I leave it like it is, it's, you know, it's a one income. It just doesn't create enough income to justify doing the work on it.
Do the windows in the front come down further than the floor of that other apartment would be?
No,
Do they match up?
they pretty well
Would it
match
be
up.
like at the floor? Oh, that would look good. If it,
Well-
come all the way to the floor, if there was a second.
You know, basically, could do anything with those windows we need to do to make it work.
Did they still open? I
No,
noticed they were
they're-
called casement windows.
They're wood, and the termites have eaten them up. If you
Oh,
try to open them,
goodness.
they fall off the hinges, or just pretty well
Okay.
disintegrated. And that's, the ones in the back were metal. They look alike, they're metal, but the ones in the front were wood. I don't know why they decided to do it that way, but the whole front of it really's got termite damage.
East Texas.
It's, Stephen called me a while ago, and he's working in the building next door, and he found live termites over there today.
Wonderful.
So I don't know how you stop them. But anyway, I digress. But, yes, that's, you know, like I say, basically, what the state proposed, to me, that their rendering looks like a 1970s building.
It does.
And I'd like to make it look a little more historic. And as I said, to put the apartments upstairs would be the highest and best use for that building, in my opinion. So that's where we stand.
Plus you get a balcony out there, right? Is there a little bit of a balcony? If it looks like Cowboy Jack?
Yes, Cowboy Jack has a balcony, yes.
So this would have a balcony?
Yes, if, with your approval. That was part of the deal. There's never been a second floor, so there's never been a balcony.
Right.
With your
So,
approval, I'd like to, I have this, you know, of course, I did Cowboy Jacks. I have the exact same, iron posts on each side of the doors that's in Cowboy Jacks. I bought 4 of them, and I have some exactly. I have doors to match Cowboy Jacks, but they may be a variance there because, this building is 2 feet narrower than Cowboy Jack, so I may have to put one wide single door instead of putting two doors there to make up the difference. But that's, I have a wide single door that I could put in there, and then I also have double doors that I can put in. But it depends when we get in there and start doing the measuring and everything, the single door may be, you know,
The better
better.
fit.
To make the windows on each side wider, basically. But anyway, that's, go ahead.
You know, I got this stuff.
Go
So,
ahead.
I'm gonna disagree with the rest of the committee. To me, this and its 2 neighboring are little mini block mid-century buildings. And that's wonderful, and I think, I agree with the opinion expressed by the THC folks that it doesn't need to look like Cowboy Jack's, because that's not what it was. However, I think especially playing off of the success of the Fredonia with the mid-century that we got going on, that this is actually, it's appropriate historically, to go with that newer second story. I am not saying that you need to go back to the 1-story building, but that the 2-story mid-century, 1946 thereabouts, is appropriate. Certainly, the look would change if the paint comes off. Who knows? That's always, you know, how that's going to play into it. Hoping that paint had been not, because it probably hasn't been repainted a whole bunch since that slip cover was on there so
Right.
long that it might come off very well. So that's because that's part of this. So I'm strongly in support of paint, fingers crossed, coming off without damage. But that's, as you know, the casement windows, they are stylistic of the time period. And that's one reason I was asking about the back, because yes, if you have somebody living up there, you want a little open space, a little air, a little access, and that's why I was asking the rear. And I did drive around. My feet aren't wet because of that, but that helped, and walked around. And as you noted, that's what I was noticing, the back windows with that steel are much in much better shape, at least they
Oh,
look
yeah.
like compared to the front.
Yeah, the steel has held up.
Yeah, which is wonderful.
Right.
And there could be, since that's not the primary facade, that could be an alternative. Quite frankly, looking out over a park as opposed to all the idiots driving on Main Street. I noticed that even compared to, I don't know if you can see whichever picture they have up here, that the awning is now off.
Yes.
I was looking, it looks like they used a combination of chicken wire and some type of concrete or stucco. I wasn't sure, were you able to determine, did they lay that over transom windows? I was trying to look under, but I didn't want to go in your building, so I was looking from the outside. Is there no evidence of transom between, at the top of that?
No, I don't see any evidence of.
Okay.
When we took that off the front, the actual door was recessed just
Yeah.
a small, you can see where it's just a
yeah.
small recess there.
Yeah.
But there's no evidence. Of course, when I take the rest of that stucco and stuff off, there may be something behind there, but
Right, I
right
didn't
now.
know if you could see from the inside,
No,
but I
there's
couldn't
nothing.
see from the outside, because that's something that comes up in this, are there
Mm-hmm.
transom windows or not?
There were none that I've seen evidence of.
Right,
Because they completely rebuilt all that, they've got back, look like a house inside where they built it up to brace up for the ceiling and for the windows and all there
Okay.
now, that glass display all is in there.
okay. So, yeah, that was a question I had, was,
Yeah.
and I figured that was one way or the other. In thinking about your access, because yes, of course, people want to get to the second story, personally, I would like to see a new rendering, not the 318, I'm gonna get my numbers mixed up, not the Cowboy Jack
Right.
version, but not necessarily because, I didn't notice in the THC, and I tried to look through it, their versions didn't appear to provide any second-story access.
No,
No,
they
it
did.
did
Primary
not.
No,
facade
they did
either.
not.
This is a rendering, and she didn't put the access either. This is just a rendering that Rachel Underwood did for me, but it does not show the outside access either.
Oh, yeah. So, personally, there's gotta be an option in between that's not this much more historic. This is a mid-century building that's not a late 19th century building.
Exactly.
But that's not where functionality, as I just told these students earlier, a building has to be functional to survive, and that's our first and foremost. We want
Right.
it to be functional, but we also want, our job is to look out for the
Sure.
houses, just
And-
like
and
CASA
I-
looks out for children, we look out for buildings.
I totally support that.
So I would like to see, which is the last suggestion anybody coming before us wants, is personally, I'd like to see a third option that would balance that access, because obviously you need access. And the distance of a primary access, I would hate to be lugging groceries all the way up from the back because it's a taller building in the back.
Yeah, well, it's gonna be, I don't know if I made myself clear, it's gonna be two separate apartments up there.
Oh, no, it's not.
I'm sorry, it's 150 foot long, so it's got, I'm gonna cut it into two separate apartments. And there's a old ragged door back there in the back, I think you see that. I want to replace that door so where they can have access to the back for the back apartment and access from the front. And as it's shown in the rendering.
Oh, okay, so, well, that might be something more that we need to see as well. 'Cause-
It's better to have separate access than it is to have a long haul trying to get back to the back.
So you're saying you're planning on a back apartment and a front apartment?
That is correct.
Okay, I
It
misread that.
won't change the looks of anything now, I mean,
Right.
Right.
I mean, it'd be like the rendering that I've shown y'all, it won't change anything from that.
Okay,
But it will be two separate apartments, or that's my plan.
okay. Well, no, that's all the kind of information we have to be able to make a decision
It's in the 205.
more appropriate.
So this drawing is that at the entrance door to the,
Yes, that would be the
Apartment
entrance,
there,
that would be the
okay.
entrance
To the front
That's correct.
apartment.
to the front apartment, yeah.
Yes, ma'am, and then there'd be another entrance from the back.
Is it our job to, I mean, nothing that's being sought here is actually historic. It's actually like a fake front on a,
No,
you know.
it's a 1946 building.
Yeah, so
It's
that's what
historic.
I'm saying. Is there some way that,
Was it built in
Building
nineteen
actually
forty-six?
is earlier than that.
Yeah, it's earlier than that.
It was earlier than that.
1946.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But subsequent changes are historic in their own right.
Yes.
Right.
So,
But
We're
you
looking at-
can take it back to the
Yeah, because,
original.
excuse me, can I,
I'm sorry.
Okay,
I'm sorry,
so-
we're discussing and we shouldn't be, sorry.
No, ma'am, you're perfectly acceptable. I just wanted to clarify because there was a little bit of confusion on the 46. The building changed significantly in 46.
46?
Right.
So this is a 1946 building. It is not a 1900 building.
Oh, okay.
that's why I was saying.
So there's-
That's what
this is a
you're saying, yes.
mid-century
Right,
building.
so
Even though
that-
it was there in a different configuration.
A footprint of a building has been in this site since
Yes,
around 1905.
Yeah.
This building we're referring to is a 1946 structure. Does that kind of clarify that?
Yes.
Yes.
looks like
Thanks.
it's got
Like many
painted
of the
windows
buildings
and
along
stuff.
in there were stables, they were, yeah. They were not actual buildings. Okay.
Could you do an apartment, your apartment plans and maintain this front? You might have to change the bottom, obviously, but those paned windows and keep it that way, maintain 40s sort of.
I don't know.
We have the documentary, the footage, 1938 found footage,
Right.
and it probably has a picture of this building in 1938, so
I didn't think
I don't know
about
if that would help or not, but.
I hadn't thought about that.
It's available in the Texas Archive of the Moving Image, but I don't need to look there.
I didn't think about it either.
Well, of course, here goes, I think it's the ugliest building in Nacogdoches, and I just kind of want to
Wow.
change it to be truthful.
Not even close. But
So-
it isn't about pretty. It's-
Well, I know, well, functionality, I mean, it's, it needs to be,
We want the building to live, we want it to survive, we want it to prosper.
exactly.
I guess where I'm sitting is and I can understand the bottom wanting to pull in what's a lot of wasted space in that entrance at the
And it
moment.
is.
That's a lot of commercial space.
It's
So it's one of those that I could be more flexible on, and I can be more flexible on putting a door in for access to a second story. But that upper part, especially now that the canopy, I'm trying to look at this picture and, because now the canopy is off, which kudos to you, it wasn't contributing anything either.
So your suggestion is to leave those windows
Leave that,
and bring the door to the,
but, maybe have some compromise on the bottom, but that would be a new plan, yeah. Because the feel is, is, especially when taken in conjunction with the two buildings, we have this little little triple
Yes.
group of mid-century.
Right, they kind of go together.
So, yeah, I'm not in love with what you have, and I'm not in love with the THC has.
Yeah.
But,
Me either.
but I can form that in a more formal statement besides not in love with it. All right, there's the end of my
Chairman,
questions
can
and
I-
comments.
Thank you.
Chairman,
Yes,
so,
please.
one of the things that we often want to avoid is redesigning during a meeting.
Right, right,
Um,
it's
And
not our job.
Well, no, ma'am, I'm not saying that, but
No,
it's,
it's
to
true.
give feedback on what components you would like to see altered or what components you feel are acceptable. That is perfectly acceptable type guidance to give to an applicant. And none of you have done this, but instead of saying, hey, move this to here, that's what I just, before we headed down that road, just wanted to kind of head that off and avoid that. And it is perfectly acceptable to approve, to deny, to approve with modifications, or to simply ask for it to be tabled and for something to be brought back. So you have lots of options. It is not just an approval or a denial.
I have a question for you, Brian. Could we approve, say, the bottom portion that allows an access to the front apartment and brings the recessed doors forward, but without the balcony?
That's getting a little more specific than you
Is it?
should, because
Okay.
that's a design work.
Just ask.
And can I see if I can rephrase your comments and
Yes,
tell me if
please.
I'm on point? And that is that, what Ms. Walsh is saying is that she is open to modifications on the ground floor, which would include moving the location of the door. But one of the components that you're not okay with is the balcony. Did that summarize that close enough?
Actually, I don't want to voice my personal opinion.
Well, no,
I'm sorry. I'm just
I
trying
was
to
trying to
stay within
reword-
the guidelines.
What you were suggesting is.
Yes, 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 in the
Yes, ma'am,
example.
and that's what I'm
Yes,
trying to
yes,
say, so.
Yes,
That type of feedback to the applicant is perfectly acceptable,
okay, thank you.
but not approving of an element that has not been presented. So you can't approve something that has not been presented in your packet.
Okay. And technically, the bringing the door forward has not been presented in the packet. Thank you. Okay. This is a complicated
It really is.
thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I don't wanna make it easy for you. Chris.
No, of course not.
Well,
Of
it's
cour-
a-
We don't expect
earn
it.
the
It's kind
No,
of a
no.
huge decision, actually.
Yes.
You know, it's all right there in the middle of downtown.
But we do need to remember what it looked like before. We do need to keep that in mind, yes. Any other statements, questions?
Well, it seems to me that we don't know the original footprint, like you told us, but the footprint we do see here is a smooth building with casement windows all across the top, second floor. If you somehow did that, that's the footprint you're looking at. Seems to me it's a 1940s almost Art Deco-ish kind of building. And if I was drawing the plans, that's kind of where I would come back, I think. And I don't think it alters what you need that much, because it would smooth off the whole front of the building and still leave those beautiful windows there. Maybe different glass, obviously.
Yeah, well, it'd have to be rebuilt because like I say, they're all termites that eat the frames up. I don't know how hard that would be to rebuild those.
We'd expect you to find some old growth wood so it would be sturdier than this new. I'm
Make
sorry.
that cypress
I'm
where the termites-
joking.
Yeah, I know.
I know, right?
Make them cypress where the termites won't bother them.
I mean, our job is to help you.
And I understand that,
It is.
and I appreciate y'all immensely. I support y'all in every way. I really do.
we
I've
know.
I've told y'all that. I just, if I'm gonna spend $150,000 or $200,000, whatever it's gonna take to fix it, I need to have some kind of return.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And you've got your 2 apartments up there in a commercial space.
Yes,
You
so
have
that
a
would
return
do it.
that
Right.
way.
Yes, that would do it.
And new, you know, better looking commercial space. I think that would be great. Yeah, you know, on first looking, you look at the Cowboy Jack building, it looks so cool. You think, oh, that would be great downtown. We need something like that. But really looking at the block, you know, and listening to Perky, who really knows so much about it, I do see that, you know, that would look like a Disneyland thing if it was right there. You know, it wouldn't fit in right with the rest of it.
Well, I don't think we're verging on the Disneyland yet, but.
Not quite, but I mean, it would look, you know, it wouldn't look, it looks great where Cowboy Jack's is there at the end, but I think, you know, this design that the commission made, it's not
I wish,
nearly as beautiful, but, I think it's probably more what we need to go for.
I wish we could draw as many tourists as what Disney World draws.
I know,
Absolutely.
I know, but I think who said that about the Fredonia, that's a good point.
That's Perky.
Because, yeah, that is kind of a neat style in its own way too. And, just, the more I look at these three this section of the street together, you know, I think it could look very nice. And, make a great apartment, apartments, yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
I did not read that right.
But taking the paint off the brick, which is probably what's going to happen because it has peeled quite a bit, right?
Not as bad as you would think. It's-
Really?
uh-uh.
I thought it was peeling off pretty bad.
It's,
I haven't looked at it in the last couple of days.
Slip cover was doing its job.
Yeah, I guess so. It was protecting it.
I don't know how hard it'd be to get that paint off, but
And you wouldn't want to do it if it was gonna endanger the brick.
that's the trouble with that, to
Right.
endanger the brick. I've tried to get it off of some other the other side of Cowboy Jack's, it faces I've tried everything I can think of to get that off, and it won't come off
Yeah.
without damaging the brick.
It all depends which kind of paints they used.
Yeah,
and,
that's true.
you know.
But it kind of soaks into those brick, and sometimes it's hard to get off.
Right.
Well,
Well, I almost feel like, Brian, we need a little guidance here, but I think we could be open for a motion to approve part of the COA or all of the COA. I am not trying to lean anyone in any direction, but maybe approve something with changes, I'm in a little bit of a stump here. I'm not sure.
well, do we need the applicant anymore?
No, we don't.
Thank
Thank you so much.
Thank
Take
y'all
them
very
off the
much
hot
for your
box.
consideration. We'll see y'all
Thank
later.
you very much.
We just wanted to stand up longer.
I would be happy to make a motion, of course. Don't run away, John. You all can.
Don't run away, don't run away.
We were just letting you sit down, not.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can hear what we say.
I would be happy to make a motion, which of course means you all can approve and
Right.
disapprove and not second it or anything like that, but if you wanted to get the rolling. What do you think, esteemed staff member?
Esteemed staff member. He has
Much
that
like your-
embroidered on a pillow.
No, much like your chairwoman was stating, I'm trying to figure out how to word something that doesn't give you one lean or the other, so I try to give you all of those options. The applicant will need to return to receive a COA for the back half of the building. So you are not inconveniencing the applicant by returning to another meeting.
That's good to know.
That is good.
So because once again, the reason I mentioned the designing at the
We're
Table?
not here to redesign.
unless you are okay with 100% of the applicant's proposal, I would suggest that you offer input and either table or deny unless you are accepting of the proposal which is in front of you. If you are okay with the proposal, then I suggest you approve.
Well, knowing that there would have to be some, no, it does have the entrance there. I'm sorry, I started to say some changes, but, okay, all right. I will open it up for motions.
Well, I'll take a stab at it. I'll make a motion for COA 2021-006 that it be tabled to be returned. Is that the correct phrasing? So at the moment, I feel it doesn't fully meet city ordinance and criteria C, D, E, G, and K. How- With one exception, removing the one ask of removing standing seam, metal canopy, and awning has already been done. So that is not a concern. But that to see redesign for the other elements to better meet the architectural style of the 1946 building, respecting the architectural style of the 1946 building. How's
So
that work?
you're, not in your exact words, because Hannah
Yeah.
will have had your exact words recorded, but did I hear that you are wanting to table this item for a future meeting when the applicant can bring back a proposal that better meets this period of architecture?
Yes.
Okay.
And I don't know.
Period being 1946,
Yes.
not, okay.
I don't know how to say that I'm not, the only piece, that I feel doesn't meet the design criteria was removing the standing seam, metal canopy, and awning, and that's already occurred, so I'm not suggesting that that get put back on or anything crazy like that.
if there is any other guidance on specific areas that you could, should this motion pass, that you could provide the applicant, it would be greatly appreciated, because then the applicant can return with something that is more to your standards. Should this have a second and pass, Chairman?
Yes. So,
So that's my motion. I'm making a motion, all be returned except for that return standing seam,
okay.
metal awning, in a manner more fitting the architectural style of the 1946 building.
Okay. Do I hear a second?
I second it.
All in favor, state aye.
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 Opposed?
Yep.
Oh, I'm
Was that-
sorry, aye,
Okay, thank you.
sorry.
Oftentimes, if the person taking the minutes and on the microphone,
Yes,
it's
yes.
not recorded, it, if Hannah were to go back and revise her minutes in a week, and she doesn't hear that, she may think she had it wrong, so that's why we ask, you verbalize
And
that.
may I state my reason? I know that when someone is working on a building, delays can cause so much trouble. And that it's, sometimes you lose your crew, they go on to another job, and I understand that.
Some, and Hannah will have this obviously in the recording and in the minutes, which we can supply to Mr. Sloan. Some of the comments, just shake your heads yes, or say yes, please, don't shake your heads.
Right.
But there was a desire to keep the feel of the bay of windows all the way across the front. There was also a sense of more room for negotiation on the bottom floor with moving entrance
Yes.
back and forward,
Yes.
closing in items. And those were the two big ones that I heard.
So encouragement of removal of paint if possible.
If
and repairing.
possible.
And yes, to reveal that pattern work. And yes, the flexibility, including some preservation of that Norman brick on the very base of
Right.
the front, where possible, depending on how that could go.
And since in 1946 it did have an awning, if he wanted to replace that awning as, yes.
Awnings are common in our almost all of our downtown
Right,
buildings.
Yeah.
So it's very common.
Right.
So,
That is your only,
did we cover everything?
yes, Chairman.
That's right.
I adjourn this meeting. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. That was so interesting.